Hello, in this video we're just going to make a comparison of the Sony Xperia Z against the Samsung Galaxy S3. Now we can't possibly cover everything, but we're going to try and cover some of the main points and differences between these two devices and try and make some sort of comparison if you're looking to go between the two of them. Now, first things first, the S3 has been out longer than the Xperia Z, probably sort of 8 or 9 months in comparison to the Z that's just been launched. So there are some clear physical differences. The screen size is one to start with. It's a 5-inch screen on the Xperia Z and a 4.8 on the S3. So that's going to have an effect on the overall physical size. In terms of length, there isn't an awful lot of difference, and width is fairly similar too. The Z is much squarer though. You haven't got the sweeping curves like you have on the S3. In terms of thickness, there's not a lot in them. I think from sort of initial perception and to look at, the Sony looks the nicer device. It's sort of a little bit sleeker, looks a little bit classier. The Z has tempered glass on the front and the back, where the S3 is plastic. The S3 is traditionally very sort of cheapy plastic. You can see the bend in that, whereas the Z's sort of one sealed unit, so it doesn't feel quite so cheap. It definitely feels the sturdier of the two units. There are some other sort of main physical differences. You've got a physical button here on the S3, and you've got your soft keys back and menu here, whereas that's based on the software on the Xperia Z. On the back, both have got full HD cameras. However, the S3 is an 8 megapixel camera, whereas the Sony Xperia Z is a 13 megapixel camera. Under the back covers, they've both obviously got batteries. The S3 one is removable. That's a 2100 milliamp hour battery, as the under the back covers they've both got batteries, but the S3 is removable. That's a 2100 milliamp hour battery, whereas the Xperia Z is a 2330 milliamp hour, and that's sealed in the device. On the S3, albeit under the back cover, you do have a micro SD card slot and a micro SIM card slot. This takes 64 gigabyte cards. The Xperia Z has a micro SD and micro SIM slot. You've got the micro SIM slot on the side there, sort of concealed away, and the micro SD card slot here, but it only supports cards up to 32 gig in capacity. The onboard memory is fairly similar though. This one is a 16 gig. You can get other memory variants, but most popular is the 16 gig S3. The Xperia is 16 gig as well. So in terms of expansion, they're fairly similar, although the S3, you could argue you could expand even further because it takes a 64 gigabyte card. In terms of weight, the Z weighs in at 146 in comparison to the S3 at 133 grams. The thickness, touching upon this again, is the S3's at 8.6, whereas the Z's at 7.9. But it's really hard to tell those sort of differences between the two units. So let's get the screens on both of these and sort of show you around the software a little bit more. So both are running Android, albeit they've been customized in different ways. You've got the home screens on both of them. Both are running Android version 4.1 at the moment, but they're each going to get an upgrade over time, although it's likely the Xperia Z will continue to be upgraded for the longer term, bearing in mind it's a newer device, but Samsung are very good in terms of updating. So you can see there's a slight difference in their versions at the moment, but nothing too much to speak of. I've also got to say that whilst we're looking around this device, the S3 is my own personal device here, so there's going to be stuff on it and the speed is going to be slightly different. But sort of the core functionality remains the same because it's Android. A lot of the features and functions that you've got on here are going to be fairly similar. With the Xperia Z, they have installed something called battery stamina mode, which is designed to make the battery last longer by switching off key features and functions like data connections when you power the screen off, and then when you power the screen back on, they will come back on again. Now, you don't have that sort of feature on the S3. I mean, there are power saving sort of modes, perhaps not quite as intelligent as the Xperia Z, but it's only a bit of software, and a lot of those can be picked up from the marketplaces. So you can customize your home screens and everything. You've got shortcuts along the menu system on both of these. Now, this is a pre-production Xperia Z, so there might be some tweaks in the software. One of the nice things with the S3 is you can customize which ones display up here, whereas on the Z we haven't yet found that function, but both have got shortcuts then through to the full settings menu. So if we go back to the home screens, we've got similar sort of options when it comes to personalization. On here, let's just so you can do, so you can set the wallpapers. You see you've both got wallpapers, apps and widgets. You've got themes on the Xperia. You can add pages on the S3, and you can add pages on the Xperia Z here as well. A nice feature on the Z which you don't have on the S3 is the ability to choose which of your home screens is your main home screen. That's kind of a nice touch, but that's just a launcher sort of setup thing. There are plenty of other launchers that you could load onto the S3 and use. So if we then look at the applications, we've got a different layout here in terms of what's here, because I've installed stuff on my own device, but both have got the sort of Google standard apps, you know, Google Plus, Gmail, Maps, navigation. With either of them, you have got the option to change how they're viewed. So I've got them here, I've got them in own order, alphabetical, most used. So sort of similar but different, both sort of achieve the same sort of thing. So I could go to an alphabetical grid, much like the Xperia Z here. You've got the options to search on the Z, which is a nice feature. It's not quite so easy to do that on the S3, but a quick press the menu button, and you've got options to create folders, uninstall, change the view type, share the app. So they're just little variations in the way things sort of display on here. In terms of sound and audio, both have got 3.5mm headphone jacks. They're both on the top. The Xperia Z is covered up because this is an IP rated device, and that's another key feature for this phone. You can have it in running water, dust and mud, and the device will carry on. The S3, whilst resistant to a point like any piece of technology, it hasn't got anywhere near the same levels of protection. So this you can sort of take out in the rain, have it by the pool, and even if you dropped it in inadvertently, it should survive. On the S3, you've got the speaker grill on the back here. It's a nice location, it's not in the way, it's pretty loud and acceptable for most. It does distort a little bit in my opinion at a high end. The Xperia Z, their speaker or its speaker is here down the bottom, and it's okay in terms of its location, but bearing in mind it's the bottom, you can easily end up covering it up, and it's the only speaker, so you can easily muffle it. Having said that, at full volume it's very good quality. It doesn't sound tinny or anything like that. So whilst not ideally placed, and it'd be nice to have two of them, it's good sound quality from that. The other thing I should point out is it's got a lanyard connector sort of here. You can thread your lanyard through the corner of the device here through to this corner and attach it and with a lanyard, a feature that you don't have on the S3. You know, a few differences in terms of the button placement as well. Both are on the right side of the device for the power buttons. The Z's a little bit further down. The volume keys on the S3 are on the left, whereas on the Z, they're on the right hand side just under the power. So in terms of most of the functionality, it's all sort of here for you. You know, I can try and give you a bit of a comparison in loading speeds, but it perhaps wouldn't necessarily be wholly fair and accurate because this hasn't got much content on it on the Z, whereas the S3 has. But I'll just give you a rough idea. So if I try and click both at the same time into the camera, so you can see that the Z loaded up sort of quickest there, but very little difference between the two. Both have got quad-core processors in them. Slight difference in speed. The S3 is 1.4 as opposed to the 1.5, but on a day-to-day basis you're not really going to notice that too much. You've got a lot of different settings on each of these cameras. The S3 is a particularly good camera. I think the Z will pip it in a sort of camera test. One of the great features on the Xperia Z is this superior auto mode, which is really intelligent to help you take better pictures. It auto detects the scene, and the Z is the first camera to have HDR on the video side of things. The front-facing camera on the Z is also better. It's a 2.2 megapixel camera on the Z, whereas the Samsung Galaxy S3 is 1.9 megapixels, so not a lot in it. It's a small difference. The rear cameras are where it's really at. You're 13 on the Z against the 8 of the S3. So you've both got shortcuts into your gallery. You've got the ability to easily take photos and record video from the camera app on the Z, whereas with the S3 you sort of have to flick between the two. A nice feature when recording video on the S3, if you're saving content to the internal memory on the S3, you can take pictures, but as you can see, the Z also allows you to take stills at the same time. Now the camera's playing up a bit because it's a prototype software on here and because it's rested just against a white background, but you can see that sort of fairly similar in terms of what you can do when it comes to the camera application. So let's go to the home screens again on them both. Let's also just try and take you to a web page on each of these. So if we just go to through the Chrome web browser, both have loaded into the mobile site. We can go into the full desktop view on both of them. Just running over Wi-Fi on both of these. Now you can pinch and zoom in and out on both, not a problem. You can double tap, you can orientate them both into landscape mode. A nice feature coming out of the web browser that the S3 has that the Xperia doesn't is that when you go into the gallery to view videos, the way you play them back is slightly different, or say it's slightly different. You can do more with videos on the S3 in the form of their pop-out player. So if I just play a video here, so I've got the sound off at the moment, but I can pop this player out in a little window, and in the background I can get on and do other things. Now I can't do that on the Xperia Z. You see, it just has to sort of play in that window. I've got no pop-out option. Now I don't know how many times people use that, but it's kind of a nice little feature there anyhow. In terms of actual quality playback, both screens are very, very good. You know, they're both at full HD resolution, so there's arguments for and against both screens. I'll let people be the judge of that themselves. Unless you're putting them really side by side and making a detailed comparison, I think you'd be, happy with either of them on the devices here. Another feature that Samsung have added to their device with some of the recent updates is this premium suite, and what this means is that you can run a couple of applications simultaneously. So if I got the gallery open there, I can have Chrome open at the same time. That's a nice touch for multitasking. So I can be doing two things at once. You can't do that on the Z. Now, it's not the most demanded of features, because when you're on a screen of this size, not a lot of people are going to want to do two things at once, but the principle remains that you can indeed do that if you choose. So I could be playing a video in this window whilst browsing the web in this, and I can change the size, the position. It's a bit fiddly. I can flip them around. I can go full screen on one of them. So that's quite a nice feature. The other thing is both have wireless content sharing, so you can share the contents of your screen to an HD display. Now, Samsung do it through an all-share cast dongle that you can pick up as a separate accessory. Sony do it through a mirroring technology to their Bravia screens, but both also have the option to do it MHL or HD video out through the micro USB port, so you can connect a cable there to an HD display. It's the cheapest, I think, and the easiest method for most people, and on the S3 you can do it down here. They use different adapters, but the fact is they do both do it. So that's a quick overview of the differences between the two devices. Be sure to check out our other videos on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Clove Technology.